interviewing staff, students, parents, board members, observing classes, looking at student work, just compiling all that we can. But that is a data point as well, the visit, because it's the totality of the entire record of the school that we look at and arriving at what the renewal recommendation will be. I think the other girding factor, I guess, as we want to call it that, is that the Board of Trustees of SUNY have established what's called the renewal practices. And in that document, we actually have worked to the point where we lay out very clearly what is the bar to get a full-term 5-year renewal. What's the bar for getting a 2-year short-term renewal? What happens with non-renewal? For schools that take planning years, we take that into consideration because our charter clock starts ticking as soon as they get a charter. So if they take a planning year or 2, they kind of lose a couple of years. Well, we have something to give those years back when they actually go through a full-fledged renewal. So we try to be very consistent in the application of the practices and policies that have been put in place. And I just wanted to add, I think with all of that being said and the renewals that we have done, I want to say we've probably done upwards of 50 renewals at this point. We have not renewed 6 charter schools. There have been schools that have received short-term renewals and come back and been able to get a 5-year renewal. Schools cannot, by policy, obtain sequential short-term renewals, okay? Because a short-term renewal means that you really had a mixed academic record, but you on the ground had in place at the time of renewal a strong performance program, and we thought with additional time you would indeed make the bars to get a full-term renewal. So just to be clear, you can't go on and on and on making plan after plan after plan. There comes a time where we have to say, you know, you've got a record now, it's 7 years old, you're past your startup issues, decision time is here. So I think that's probably a pretty good summary.
Doug, I was wondering if you could take a little different angle on this question. NACSA is working in Missouri. It's a priority state in NACSA's agenda of assistance. So what are some of the things that you're going to try to do to help increase sponsor capacity in Missouri and to help bring about these more sophisticated sort of accountability systems?
If you look at SUNY's procedures, protocols, practices, that is very much what we strive for and what we'd like to see our sponsors have in place. And unfortunately, in Missouri, sponsorship began before any type of funding for sponsors. And there was very limited capacity for our sponsors, who primarily are state universities. There's very little capacity and ability for them to carry out many of their responsibilities. Generally, the sponsorship oversight responsibility fell on a vice chancellor, an associate dean, somebody who had 9 or 10 different hats they were already wearing in the university. And so on top of that, they also were given this responsibility to oversee charter schools and make sure that they're holding the schools accountable. Pretty easy to let that slip through the cracks with everything else going on. Fortunately, in the last year and a half, there were some legislative changes that have allowed sponsors to receive some funding, 1.5% funding that is to be used for oversight practices. And so now it's a matter of sponsors determining how do we use those funds and what are the practices we need to have in place. Some sponsors have chosen to give those funds right back to the schools. Others have chosen to use those funds to bring in consultants and bring in professional development opportunities. What we are working with sponsors on identifying are ways that they need to build their capacity, whether it's bringing somebody into their sponsorship office who has a single role of just paying attention to what's going on in the schools, or whether it's using those funds to bring in teams to do their site visits and to do their inspection reports. So we're working with our sponsors in that light, providing that kind of technical assistance, helping them to determine the best use of the capacity they have, and if they still have limited capacity, how to best